Welcome to Sagas and Sass Season 2. I'm Tara, along with my fellow host, Nick. This episode will cover Kingdom of Copper, the second book in S.A. Chakraborty's Daevabad trilogy.
If you're watching live, join us in the chat, or after the fact, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Sagas and Sass to continue the conversation. And just as a reminder, the views expressed in the show are those of the hosts as individuals and do not necessarily represent the show as a whole.
All right. Welcome to what might be our shortest summary ever, because there are only two of us here to read it, and I didn't want it to be super long. Anyway, Kingdom of Copper opens with a quick aftermath of City of Brass prologue that touches first on Ali, who is separated from his caravan thanks to an attempted assassination and is rescued from dying in the desert because he unwittingly creates an oasis with his newfound water magic and draws the attention of some Gitziris who take him in. Next up is Nari, who we see marrying the Daevabadi Emir Muntadir, and last but not least, Dara, who has been brought back from the dead by Nari's mother Manitza. Crazy talk! But when the novel really gets going, turns out it's years after the prologue. Nari is still in Daevabad and has completed quite a bit of training with the help of her mentor Nazreen and become an adept healer, but she's also basically a prisoner in the palace. Ali is living in a small village in the Gitziri desert and is well loved by its people because of how great he is with water, which has allowed them to grow more crops and therefore become more self-sufficient. And as for Dara, having his POV is kind of weird because, wow, is he somehow even more emo than we expected? But anyway, he's been training up some new Deva warriors for Manitza, and they're planning on attacking Daevabad during Navastatum, which is the celebration of the new century. Unfortunately for Ali, who really just wants to live his dang life, his Ayanle cousin shows up and dumps a tax payment from Ta'entry on him, forcing him to travel to Daevabad so that the Ayanle won't suffer from having, not pay their taxes. Thankfully, his friends Lebaid and Akiza from the village go with him, so hey, at least he's not alone. As for Dara, he helps Manitza make a deal with the Marid, who totally weren't supposed to kill him. Oh, and Manitza has made this awful poison that attacks Gitziri relics and only Gitziri relics, and it kind of can't be contained, so that's, bad.
Meanwhile, back in Daevabad, Muntadir is super pissed that Ali is back, while Nari seems to be kind of torn about the situation. But then she has to save Ali's life again when someone, Jamsid, tries to poison him, so he decides to owe her again. And thanks to a little side trip Princess Zainab takes her on, she knows she wants him to work on that debt. See, she discovered an old Nahid hospital when she was hanging out with Zainab, and she wants to reopen it as a hospital for both Jen and Shafi. With the help of a Shafi doctor, she discovered nonetheless. Obviously, that's not an easy thing to get by. So none of them can be done all at once, and none of it is easy. The whole hospital thing seems to be going well, though, until Kaveh arranges a fake Shahid on Deva attack that leads to riots, and Nari has to go around healing a bunch of Shahid that were injured, which is, really against the whole Deva code thing. Anyway, Ghassan is mad, Kaveh is mad, and Ali is forced to remain in the hospital, and Nari in the palace until Navastatum and the hospital's grand opening. Eventually, the big day arrives, but Nari, Nisreen, and Jamsid are in a parade that gets attacked by Shafid. Sadly, Nazreen gets killed, and Jamsid is legit, just set on fire. It is lit. But his tattoo that keeps his Nahida abilities in check is burned away, so his body heals itself, and, I guess that cat's out of the bag. So while Jamshid might be okay, Ghassan, of course, decides to use the attack to his advantage and sends out an order for the Shafit district, and therefore the Shafit themselves, to be destroyed. Ali mounts a successful mutiny that keeps this from happening, but then Kaveh uses Manaiza's poison to kill Ghassan. And of course, the poison spreads, killing every Gaziri in its path unless someone is able to warn them to remove their relics first. So then they're running all over the place trying to get people to remove their relics, but also everything else is happening. And that's not even the worst of it. The deal Dara made with the Marid lead to them destroying the Royal Guard citadel, which kills just a huge portion of the guard. Then Dara's soldiers and the Ifrit and their ghouls arrive, and then Jara himself shows up and has a confrontation with Nari, Ali, and Muntadir. Muntadir is fatally injured. Nari and Ali escape, only to run into Manaiza as they are trying to retrieve the ring that controls Suleiman's seal from Ghassan's body. However, Nari being Nari, she is able to outsmart her mother, shove the ring onto Ali's finger, and escape by jumping off the parapet and into the no longer cursed lake. Okay, let's take just a deep cleansing breath. because that was a lot, and the book isn't even over yet, but it almost is, because once Nari and Ali disappear into the lake, the magic leaves Daevabad, which is bad for a lot of reasons, but it's good for Muntadir because his wound was only fatal because of magic, so it turns out he's going to live. And oh, by the way, Nari and Ali did too, but they're in Egypt now? So I guess let's just dive into the discussion.
Yeah, and even that being our shortest summary, probably ever, but certainly for a long while, it was still long. Longer than I meant it to be. I guess like first things first, wow, so we get a new POV, that of Dara, who we spent a lot of time complaining about in our last episode. So I guess like, and I mentioned, you know, when in my part of the summary, how like he's even more emo than I expected. Did you feel the same way?
Definitely.
Like,
it was off-putting.
Yeah. Like, especially after the Dara that we saw with Nari, the first part of City of Brass, seemed like he would be that way, kind of. But then when they were in Daevabad, he was like, I don't know, he just seemed kind of like standoffish and like way more sure of himself or something.
Yeah, very cocky.
Yeah. And listen, like, I get that he died and all. But just him being brought back to life and just, I don't know, it was like, I don't know how to say off-putting, because I don't think that's really it. It was just like not what I expected, I guess. Like really emo. I don't know. Like, can you think of any other way like to describe it? Because I was just, I almost feel bad for him, but also kind of not, you know, because he's Dara.
Well, that's why I like that you categorize it as emo, because I feel like, you know, in the stereotypical emo sense, they're not that all emos are like this, but and I certainly have had my emo phases, but like you have that like, everything's just so hard and so difficult, but like nobody understands me, and I guess I have to do this because it's my responsibility to do it, but like whatever. He keeps having these moral conundrums and he keeps making the wrong decision. And I think that's one of the reasons why I really have a problem with him.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and not to jump too far ahead or whatever, but you know, it's like he captures the Gitziris and he's like, the Githeri soldiers, which we didn't mention, or they're not even soldiers. I guess they are sort of, but they're like, they're scouts more than soldiers, I think. And they capture them and they, you know, he forces the older one to teach his soldiers how they fight with the Zulfikars. So it's like, but then he also somehow expects this guy to like be his friend, and he's all like care mad when the guy eventually like turns against him, and it's like, dude, come on, like you've been doing like,
I
you've
was
been such
nice
a
to
jerk.
you.
Yeah, right. But like, you were also a jerk to the like younger guy who was with him. Well, yeah, the other guy's like kind of hot-headed and dumb, you know, about things considering. But like, my gosh, I just, man, Dara, like read the room, I guess.
Yeah, read the room is a great. Just read the room, Dara. God,
he's really bad at that. Like really, really bad.
He is.
Because well, I mean, and again, like then you know, everything with Manitza, it's like, I know she's his Nahid now because he's not, you know, he's with her and not Nari. And I guess any Nahid he is with is now the one that he just blindly serves, which seems a little bit it's like, okay, so but you know, he's when they show how the poison works, which is when the Abu Safi, I think is his name. Yeah. It's something like that. When he attacks them, you know, trying to kill Manitza maybe and escape, or maybe just kill Manitza, I can't remember. You know, Manitza uses that poison, but then it like spreads. And even though it doesn't attack anybody else because they're not Githeri, like nobody in their crew is Githeri, like Dara can see it just chilling like a mist, you know? And it's like, he asks about it. She explains she hasn't really found a way to contain it, but like, hey, like, it's okay. Cause like, it's gotta be this way. We're out of time, you know? And it's like, he's clearly not okay with it, but like you said, he makes excuses for it, and then he lies. You know, he knows it's bad, and he lies to his soldiers about it to protect them. But also, like, dude, in protecting them, you're also like you're there. They might not be totally complicit, but because they don't know how bad this thing really is, they're blindly following something. And I don't know, like the I don't want to call it trickery because I know that's not quite what it is, but it's just really, I don't know, the him acting like, oh, well, if I don't tell them about it, then it's just all on me, is
Right.
just real questionable.
I mean, that's not how it works, right? But lying by omission is a thing, and it's absolutely what he did. So, I mean, I honestly think that there is a degree of trickery involved because he's not lying in the sense of he told them, like, no, it's fine, everything's great. It's going to actually, like, cure diseases or something. But he is deliberately omitting information that would allow them to make an informed choice.
Yeah, I mean, and he also kind of he's basically says, well, we have to move away from here so that they don't keep noticing, you know, that this stuff isn't dissipating. And it's like, man, like, oh, it's not good. Like, I knew you weren't good, Dara, but this is like, I don't know. It's like these people, these men and women, they trust him, you know.
Yep.
He is their leader, and he is, in every sense of the word, misleading them.
Yep.
And it's really sad because they are so, you know, fervent in their, you know, not worship necessarily, but, you know, in their belief that what Manitza and is doing is right, and that Dara will not lead them astray, that it's like, it's just really sad. And also just kind of real, like too real almost, you know, because it's just that real life, like people blindly following a leader without like reading between the lines or anything.
Yeah. Yikes. Yeah.
And
the whole like reveal that Manitza is basically as bad as Ghassan was really interesting to me. Just to like the fact that she's absolutely like cold-hearted, like I'm gonna murder everybody to get my throne and to have my way. It's just like, damn, okay.
In a way, I think she's almost worse because Ghassan doesn't hide who he is or what he's doing, and she does. She is very, very manipulative. You know, her like, oh, like, I know it's bad, but I'm your Nahid and everything will be fine, Dara. Like, she's very, very manipulative. So it's like, listen, they're both bad people, and Ghassan has done some terrible things. He up until he literally dies in this book, he does like terrible thing after terrible thing, or at least tries to. But with her, it's like that manipulation of, you know, it just, at least he's upfront about what and who he is, man.
That's true. And I do agree that there's something, I don't know if it's less evil, but it's definitely less, like you said, less manipulative about Ghassan and the way that he handles things. Because he's really more sort of like, you what you see is what you get with him.
Yeah. And he's a leader trying to keep his control. But the thing is, like, he's always been like this, you know what I mean? The sad part about Ghassan is how what he does and who he is and how he acts affects his children, particularly Muntadir in this book, who like otherwise Muntadir would probably like, he's not a bad guy. And it's literally only for like a short period in this book where when Ali comes back, when you see him kind of going a little bit like off the rails because he's so worried about losing his like power and his control because he knows Ali is his father's favorite. That, you know, but also you see the way he has been raised, and I don't know, it's very much like I don't know, like these kids, and Ali not so much, but Muntadir is really the one who keeps coming to mind because of what happens in this book, like how you see how Ghassan's like ideals and everything are rubbing off on him, and it's really sad because like, you know, he could be better.
Oh, I absolutely think that Muntadir gets one of the best character arcs in this book.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh gosh. I mean, he's so mad at his brother, and he's such an asshole. Honestly, he's such an asshole. And it's like because we see, you know, it's almost like a Game of Thrones thing where you read like the Arya point of view of Sansa in book 1, and you're like, man, Sansa's such a brat. You know, on the first read, especially, but then like, you know, Arya's so cool. In this book, it's like Ali is like, he's so just, and like he's trying so hard, maybe not doing a great job of it all the time, but trying so hard to be a good person. And why is Muntadir being such a jerk to him? But really, like, Muntadir is not a bad guy or a bad character, and in the end he really shows that. It's like he's having his whole like life, you know, and future challenged, at least in his mind, but because we don't see what he's thinking, we only see Ali like, but my brother doesn't like me anymore. It's like, oh no, poor Ali, but also kind of poor Muntadir, you know. He's got a lot going on.
Well, and then the other way that we see it is through Nari, who obviously has her own issues, understandable issues with Muntadir. But again, like you said, we don't really get to hear what Muntadir's really thinking, except for the times when Nari overhears things that she's not supposed to have heard.
Right.
And so that to me is really interesting, that we get to see a little bit of who Muntadir really is when he's talking to Jomsed, and even to an extent when he talks to Ghassan. And I think we really get to see a little bit more of it too when the 3 siblings are finally together at the end, and they're trying to like figure things out and finally have a conversation about like how fucked up their father is.
Yeah. And how they've basically almost all come to the conclusion that like something needs to be done, you know, and like soon, before things get any worse. But unfortunately, it's like things get so much worse so fast that they don't have a chance to like act on anything that they've discussed. And speaking of the 3 siblings, just because we're on this, like, I really like in the first book, the only thing we really see of Zainab is when she like tricks Nari into like eating meat and getting drunk, and you're like, Zainab, what a bitch, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, why is she being such a mean girl? But then like you see more of her in this book, and it's like, wow, she's like chill, man. I like her. I liked her a lot. You know, when she knows Nari needs to get out. So she's like, yeah, well, this is how I do it, and I'm going to take you with me. You know,
that was the first time that I was like, oh, maybe I actually really like her. And then as the book went on, I just grew to like her more and more.
Yeah. Like her and Ali go when Muntadir like skies out of his visit to the Deva temple, and Zainab and Ali go with Nari. And I was just she was really like, I wish we saw more of her. Like I kind of want like I want some Zainab like side stories, like some little novellas just about what all she does in her life, you know, like how she thinks and feels. I really want that. Sort of like how we felt, like how you feel reading when we were reading the first Shadow and Bone trilogy, and you're like, but I want to see like what really is going on through Zoya's head and stuff like that. And eventually we get that. Please, I want that from Zainab in these books. But yeah, no, I really have like this new I liked Muntadir, a good bit in the first book. Like he really seemed like, he's got his issues, but he didn't seem like a bad guy. He seemed like he's doing his best with what he's given. He cares about his family, et cetera, et cetera. So getting to see more of that from maybe not the exact same thing, but just seeing that there's that in Nari too, or not Nari, sorry, Zainab too was really nice in this book.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I was really thrilled to get to see more of those, like, minor's not the right word, obviously, because, Muntadir and Zainab are not minor characters, but they're not POV characters. And so getting to see a little bit more of them, and people like John said, like, we got to learn more about him and like what his deal is. And I just really enjoyed getting more into those characters and some of the intricacies of them.
Yeah, I do want to talk about Jamshid in a minute, but before we do, one of the quotes that I highlighted from this book, it's when Nari is talking to Muntadir, and it's, he apologizes because I can't remember exactly what he says, but he says something like really rude and nasty to her when they were kind of arguing about something after Ali came back, and maybe it was the hospital, and he's apologizing to her, and but I was in a bad mood. Essentially, I was upset about something else, and she's like, I've had enough of men hurting me because they were upset, and I was like, la. But also, I mean, at least he apologizes, and also it's very clear from what Nari has been thinking about him and their marriage, their relationship, and everything, that he's been as good to her as he possibly could be. Neither of them wanted this. They're clearly mismatched. They were both forced into it, but he, you see it in the prologue when they get married, and he's, he's very like nice about things as they're, going to their marriage bed and stuff like that. And it's very obvious that as bad of a match as they are, that they have both worked toward making it not miserable.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that too. I still don't like the fact that it happened at all. I feel like it was maybe one of those kind of, was this really necessary things? Like, was it really necessary to the plot of this whole trilogy of their stories? I don't know. I don't really think so. I think that Nari being a prisoner essentially in the palace probably would have been enough. She didn't also have to be forced to marry Muntadir, because I feel if anything that would have made her more bitter, I guess. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think it was necessary?
It's hard for me to separate that out, right? Because like, I agree that the biggest piece of it is like she's been imprisoned, and maybe the marriage makes her just that much more bitter about everything. I don't know. I don't know what it would be like if she hadn't gotten married. It makes sense that Ghassan wanted that, but at the same time, we learn that she is Shafit, and so we know that like eventually that's going to come out. So in a sense, Ghassan paints himself into a corner by marrying Muntadir to Nari, unless he deliberately wants to undermine Muntadir's chance at succession.
Yeah. And I guess like he knows, right? Ghassan knows just by looking at her, because he has the seal, so he can see everything, I guess. I don't know. That's so like, okay, whatever to me. But
yeah, seriously.
So he knows, like, yeah, he knows that she is, not full-blooded Nahid or whatever, or full-blooded Deva, Jinn, whatever, anything. Like she is part human, and it's very I don't know. It's like, so you've kind of eaten your own foot if this ever comes out, if anybody else ever, like, honestly, Manitza could have waltzed into Daevabad like without the poison, just attacked it, and maybe things would have gone differently, and she could have just been like, yeah, by the way, you married your son to a Shafit, and like it would have thrown so many things into chaos. But yeah, it's very I'm torn. I'm not really torn about it. I still think it was kind of unnecessary. I get why it was done, but I also am like, ugh, about forced marriage plots. So
always agree on that.
No matter how somewhat pleasant they might turn out, I don't love them. I hate
right.
them, actually.
Right. Like it immediately takes me back to things like Tyrion and Sansa, and just like, why?
At least these were both adults.
Yes, exactly.
There's that, I guess. Okay, so speaking of children of Manitza, we find out kind of earlier on in the book, I don't know, halfway through or something, that Jamshid is Manitza, and very obviously, even though it's never like he's Manitza and Kava's son, right? So he is full Deva, and he has been, which we knew that he was Nahid at the end of City of Brass, but it wasn't. It was like you can make a good guess at what's going on or what happened, like who his parents are, but it's for sure revealed, and also revealed to Dara at the very least, that he is Manitza and Kava's son, like partway through this book. And I think that, but of course he doesn't know still for a while, right? We like, and all the other characters also don't have any idea. It's not until the attack on the I don't know if it's Navastatum or Navastatum, but let's say it's Navastatum parade.
I think it's Statum.
Okay.
If I remember from the
audiobook
narration, yeah.
Okay. So let's say, Navastatum. So when they get attacked, and like we said in our summary, he is like whole ass lit on fire. And the fire burns the tattoo that we know about, that we know has been keeping his powers in check, away. It's gone. So his body's like, oh, hello, and heals, and it just heals him. He's healed, right? Yep. Just immediately. I don't even think he knows what is going on in that moment.
No, like, I really don't think he does, because he has, as far as I remember, he doesn't have any reason to believe that he is Nahid up until that point.
No, I think I don't want to say too much, because I did actually finish the third book, so I don't want to like
of course you did.
Spoil anything. But yeah, he doesn't know really that he is Nahid, so he's like, oh wait, I'm fine actually. Maybe it wasn't Rumi fire or something like that. But it's really it's this, and then also like he gets taken, right? Wajed, who is the leader of the royal guard, Ghassan orders him to, get Jamshid out of the city or something like that. So we have no idea where Jamshid is at the end of this book. Neither does like Manitza. She wants her son, right? And it's a little bit like having Manitza have that one-on-one with Nari, and being kind of like rude to her and being, well, you're half Shafit, so you can't wear that ring, girl. Like that ring does not fit you. Again, like Mean Girl.
Go on you.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that bracelet. Is that vintage?
So she's kind of mean to Nari, and it's obvious that what little we know about Nari and Manitza as her mother, we don't like Kava is the person that Manitza is in love with, right? Like she does, or if she's not totally in love with him, if she's not head over heels for him, she clearly loves him, cares about him, and has been in this sort of relationship with him for a long time. I mean, he's the one that she chose to tell, or just to see her burned dead body, because she knew how upset he was, and how he would like relay the tale would be the thing that convinced Ghassan that she was dead. which is really fucked up, to be honest. Like,
Yeah, super
wow.
fucked up. Ugh.
And he just like goes back to her like immediately after she's like, by the way, I wasn't actually dead. Hey boy,
Yeah,
hey.
legit, if somebody did that to me, I'd be like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'm never speaking to you again.
Mm-hmm. But
You use me to fake your death? Like, no, thank you.
so yeah, we learn, we see a lot more of Jamshid in this book, you know, because he also he's training as like to help at the hospital as well, right? So so he's, I don't know, like, and I also, I love how he was like, even though it sucks for him and for Muntadir in a way, like I love how he was like, well, you're married to my Nahid, like you're married to my Banu Nahida, so like I can't have a physical relationship with you. And I was like,
I know, that was so sad.
star-crossed lovers.
That scene like killed me. Because it's also when we get to see Muntadir at probably his most vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because he is with Jamsid, who he actually trusts and, you know, clearly loves dearly. And so he's as close to himself as I think we get to see. And he has that moment of like, please, can we just be together? And Jamsid wants to give in, but he's like, no, I can't. And it's just really sad.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And also just sad because it's like, you know, that part of the reason why their whole thing was like a secret, it was like, it was this weird, like everybody kind, it was what is it called, like a secret that's not a secret, there's like a term for that I'm blanking on right now. But like it was a secret, but it wasn't a secret. Everybody except for Ali, apparently, an open secret. Yeah, like everybody except apparently Ali knew that they were a thing.
Yeah.
So like, which also Ali, dude,
come on, Ali.
Like again, read the room. but the fact that they, I don't know, it feels like weird. It's like, of course, Muntadir has to get married eventually, you know, right? Mm-hmm. Like he's the Emir. He has to have kids. This is, you know, fantasy, like not real world, not modern times, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, the fact that it's an open secret, but everybody that knows about it is just kind of like, yeah, whatever. It's almost like a little bit, I don't know. It's certainly nicer than like some of the things we've read in like other books where it's like, it's a secret, but it's like, oh God, ew, gross. So I don't know. It's like, it's sad, but obvious that Muntadir has to like get married and have kids someday. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. It's a really weird, it's like a weird situation. Cause it's like, it's hard to be upset about it because even the people who know about it and know that it's like, oh, it shouldn't happen are like, yeah, but they care about each other. They love each other. It's whatever. And then it's like Muntadir is just off like having these like obvious relationships with courtesans. Like he has relationships with them because we saw in the first book that the one woman like totally was like her like biggest desire was that he would like run away with her. And it's like, oh no, girl.
Oh, sweetie, no.
So I don't know. It's like I feel bad for Jamshid because it's like Muntadir is trying so hard, I guess, to hide like their relationship, and he's doing a bad, like he's trying so hard and he's hurting Jamshid and still doing a bad job of it because everybody but Ali still knows about it.
Yep.
It's just, come on, man. What are you doing here?
Oof.
Yeah. But okay, so I guess I didn't really have a lot of specific talking points for this one. One of the things I had kind of seen in a lot of online discussions was regarding moral gray areas. Like there's just a lot of them, like a lot of people, not just POV characters, being caught in these situations where the line between right and wrong. And I think a lot of people are saying it is blurred. And I was like, is it though? Or does it just seem blurred? Because to me, it's like, I see the morally gray areas of these characters for sure. But I also don't think that that means their decision, like that when they are faced with decision A or decision B, that it is, I don't really think in most cases it was a morally gray thing. I think it was like, this one is clearly right and this one is clearly wrong. It's like, I guess maybe a sort of decent example is Ghassan, using the faux attack of Shafit on Deva as a reason to, or no, I'm sorry. It wasn't the faux one, the real one, when the Shafit did actually attack the Navastatam parade, right? And Kasana's like, okay, well, raise the Shafit district, which obviously means get rid of all the Shafit too. And Ali organizes a coup, basically. Like, how I think that was one of the examples I saw given, and I was like, how is that morally gray? His father's about to murder a whole ton of innocent people we're talking about to find like 3 bad guys. Yeah, 3.
Well, and that's actually a really great example, and kind of, I don't know, not paralleling, but going back a little bit to that fake attack. That was the one time where I really was like, fuck Muntadir, you're trash, when he was like, I don't know what you're talking about, and deliberately kind of threw, in that case it was throwing Nari and Ali under the bus, but he's also throwing like all the Shafid under the bus. So it's
just really because he's jealous and worried about his power. Yeah,
that was really fucked up. But those are the kinds of things that I think you're talking about, where it's like, oh, there's like this morally gray area. No, you're making decisions where one choice is really fucked up and bad, and the other choice is maybe hard for you, but is not as morally fucked up and bad.
Yeah, like I'm literally like, I was sitting here trying to think of true morally gray choices that had to be made. And maybe it's just because I finished this book a couple weeks ago, but I don't think it is. Like Manita's poison is bad because even because it can't be controlled. But even if it could be, straight up murdering Ghassan, just like that, like, I know he was bad, but like I still feel like the straight up murder is not great either. I don't know. Like I don't know. I've racked my brain trying to think of true morally gray areas in all of these decisions, and I just don't know if I can. Like maybe Musa, Ali's cousin, who like dumped the salt on him, like maybe that was morally gray, but like
that's like a hard one too, because like he also, by doing what he did and fucking up the well, also severely hurt a whole
community.
So like, is that morally gray? I'm kind of in your camp. Like it's hard for me to think of an example that I would consider morally gray. I think most of the time, unless you're looking at like smaller decisions, most of the larger decisions that are made in this book, I feel like, are a choice between, this isn't my ideal scenario, but it's probably more morally correct, and this is wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially with the POV characters, but even with characters like Ghassan and Muntadir, maybe there's some morally gray decisions that Zainab made. I'm not sure.
I don't think she really did anything.
Yeah, like, she didn't really make any like hard decisions.
No, she took Nari on a little adventure. And then later she had the discussion about possibly usurping their father with Ali and Muntadir. And it's like, even that, it's like, that's not morally gray, man. Dude needs to go. He clearly is like gotten he is at the end of any sort of like, he's not going to do any good going forward. I don't know. Yeah, I really like reading that online just made me like, I was thinking and thinking about it. I was like skimming back through the passages I'd marked in the book, and I could not find, you know, I could not find anything that I would really have said like the decision here, this decision that was made was, like you said, it's like it might not be the best decision, but it's still, or it might not be the, yeah, it might not be the best thing to do, but it's still the right thing to do in these cases, I guess. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I was very weirded out by like the fact that people thought there were actual like moral gray areas, because I was like, I mean, are there though? I can't.
Yeah, I'd really love to see somebody like defend one of these decisions as morally gray.
Yeah,
I don't see it.
and again, it could just be that I finished this book 2 weeks ago and I'm missing some tiny little things that could go into that realm, but I don't think there were.
I mean, maybe, but I've mostly listened to it over the last week, and I'm hard pressed to think of anything.
So when going back, just because I brought up the the Ayanle and the salt thing, and Ali goes to his mother and he's complaining about, I had to bring this here because blah 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 blah. the Ayanle entry would suffer if they didn't pay their taxes, and also, can you guys just stop trying to like manipulate things? And Hatset tells him, you're far too clever to believe that the Ayanle are the only reason for Daevabad's financial problems. We are a scapegoat. A slight diminishment in taxes does not do the damage I know you've seen. Keeping a third of the population in slavery and squalor does. Oppressing another third to the point where they self-segregate does. People do not thrive under tyrants, Alidzaid. They do not come up with innovations when they're busy trying to stay alive, or offer creative ideas when error is punished by the hose of a Karkadan. And that was like, you don't know much about his mother, about Hatset, in book 1.
No.
But that, I was like, oh,
she's the best.
She really is. She is so just like, yes, I'm queen. And
just like,
she's very smart and
yeah, very
like, she's thought these things through and cares about her kids so much. It's really just kind of, I'm glad, I guess, at the end of this that we at least know that Ali is alive and Zainab is alive and Hatset has been sent back to Antri and is also alive, because it's like, I don't want any of them, like, they might not be the best people, but like overall they might do not great things sometimes, but man, like, they also don't deserve like this sort of weird, like, I don't know, these weird situations and suffering sort of that they're like just constantly shoved into.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think Hatset is one of, actually, I'd be hard pressed to think of another character that I like better than Hatset. I felt like her real like introduction in this book, because like you said, we didn't really get to interact with her in the first book, was a highlight for me.
Yeah.
And it's things like this quote that really like drive that home.
To be honest, like, other than Manitza, the female characters in these two books are all like, you don't have necessarily the best opinion of Zainab after what happens in the first book, because you don't really see much of her after that one, interaction that she has with Nari that is obviously mean girl bad. But by the end of book 2, it's like, other than Manitza, is there really a female character that you can be like, they're the worst? No. I really can't. There's the former slaves that live in the hospital, Ratsu and Alacia. And then there's the Shafit doctor, whose name I can't remember her name, but she's a little bit, it starts with an S. I know that.
Yes.
She's a little bit rude, and she's kind of but it's like also like, can you really blame her? Like,
Yeah, she's been discriminated against her entire
yeah,
life. Like, I'm not
exactly.
going to hate on her for being a little rude to people who she can't trust.
Yeah, exactly. Or who she thinks she can't trust for good
Yes,
reason because of what she's been through. Like, sure,
exactly.
she can trust Nari. We as the readers know that, but she
Yes.
does not know
Well,
that.
and as we learned, like the fact that she trusted Nari actually ends up hurting her and many others.
Yeah,
Not necessarily
not
because of
Nari's fault,
Nari's fault,
right?
but like it is a direct consequence of her trusting Nari that happened.
And I mean, and even Nizreen, it's like she did not know what
Right.
she did not know the extent of what was going to actually happen.
No, definitely not.
And that's like that's what's really sad about her, because her dying in this
Mhm.
book means that we're left with this character who was not Nari's mentor, who was very, very good to her, who tried her hardest and did her best and helped Nari every step of the way as well as she could. And then she is gone before we ever have to see what side she would have chosen in the
Yep.
end.
It would have been really interesting to see that. I
Yeah.
agree.
Like, Kava is a disappointment because he sees what the poison does and he's obviously upset about it, but he's still at Manitza's side by the end,
Yep.
as far as we know. And it's just like, oh, of course you are, you're a man, I guess. I don't know. Like,
Legit.
like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be that way, but also it kind of is that way.
Sorry, it is like.
And so, yeah, not. I think that's my. I guess it's like one of those, like, someone had to die, right? In
Mhm.
this magical world where, I mean, even at the end, like, we think Muntadir is like fatally wounded, and it's like I was tearing up, over
Yeah.
his death, because at the end, like, he threw himself in front of Ali to save his brother. He like was like, give me my bow, and he was like doing his best to like take down Dara, and he's being such an ass. He's being such a smart
Yeah.
ass, like the whole time Dara's like dragging him through the palace. And it's like, I don't know. And then he doesn't die, which is great. I love that he
Mhm.
doesn't die, because, like, please, let's not kill our gays all the time. Or I guess in his case, bisexual, pansexual, whatever. But
Mhm.
we're gonna call it kill our gays because that's the trope name.
Yep.
And like, so it's great that he didn't die, obviously, and also because I like you said, he has such a great character arc. Not just, I mean, in these two books total, he has a great
Yeah.
character arc.
Yeah.
We see him as being pretty good in the first book, and then he has this awful experience on the boats and whatever, and then he goes to being like super upset with his brother, and he, but then he's like a good husband to Nari, and then and then Ali comes back and he's pissy and rude and mean again. And also, we didn't talk about Jamshid trying to poison Ali for the deer, which is just like, wow, dude, wow.
Oof.
But I'm glad he didn't die, but also it's like, again, it's back to that, like, oh, okay, so like it's magic, and like Dara didn't die in the first book, he got brought back to life, or he did die, but he's brought back to life.
He died,
so
but like he immediately comes back to life.
It was like fake dying,
Yeah.
And Muntadir is dying of this Zulfikar wound because of the poison, poison fire, whatever's poison that would cause them to die. As soon as the magic leaves Daevabad, then he's not dying anymore.
Right.
Which seems a bit odd to me. It's like, really, like, so the poison was its own magic, so that just went away too. I'm like, I'm a little bit questionable about that world building aspect, but fine, okay, I'll go with it, because I didn't really want Muntadir to die. But yeah, like him again, like Nizreen is the only major character that dies in this book, right? Might be the only. Well, Nobody cares about him.
Nobody cares.
like listen. Nobody cares about the asshole, right? Like,
true facts.
Like, we were sad. It's a little bit sad at the end of book one or toward the end of book one, for that short period of time where you think Dara died, because you know that Nari is upset as hell about her, right? And there are reasons, I guess, to it's like you dislike Dara, but to also be upset that he died because of the way everything happened was all fucked up and weird and freaky. But I guess it's like, at this point, is Nizreen the only character we actually give a shit about who has died? I think so.
I think you might be right.
And I'm not saying that like a ton of characters need to die, or I don't know. I guess I'm like I'm a realist, and that like, and also maybe I've read Song of Ice and Fire too many times, where I don't love happy endings. Like, there's a reason I like Sense and Sensibility more than I like Pride and Prejudice, because Pride and Prejudice ends too perfectly for everybody. Sense and Sensibility ends happily for Eleanor Dashwood, but very bittersweet for Marianne. Because she doesn't end up with the guy that she was head over heels stupidly in love with, you know, like, so for me, it's like, I guess I expected these books, and shoot, I guess also we have read a lot of, actually we haven't, though. The Broken Earth was dark, but Temeraire not so much. And like, there's darkness in Temeraire, but it's not in death, I guess. It's just in this constant like banishment and people being arrested and stupid stuff.
Right.
And even I guess in Shadow and Bone, it's like at the very end, you know, who do we lose? David. Spoiler alert. Sorry. this one character dies. Yeah, shit.
If you haven't read the other books. Fuck.
No, it's okay. No. I would assume that nobody who's watching this is going to care about Shadow. I don't know.
If you
maybe I'll edit this out of the podcast. But for real though, like I guess I was expecting these books to be darker than they were. And in a lot of ways, they are very dark and very realistic. Like, yes, this is a magical world, but it brings in so much real life, like the anti-Shafit, you know, sentiments, and the tribe versus tribe, even though you're all from the same area, sentiments. Like, it brings in a lot of real world stuff. And I guess maybe because of that, it's like, it's dark, but I expected there to be more like death.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, especially because of how much violence exists. Right. So, and there's a lot of threat to our kind of main cast, but there isn't a lot of death.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that's totally bad. It's just, it's a little bit unexpected that really, like, we get to the end of this book and we realize that Muntadir is alive, that Ali and Nari are alive, and at least for the moment, safe, quote unquote, in Egypt. And it's like, okay. And of course, Jamshid immediately recovered from his injuries because he's in Nahid. And it's just Nizreen that we've lost as far, I mean, obviously Ghassan, like you said too, but
but fuck that dude.
Yeah. So it's very weird that, like, I expected there to be more, especially in this book, like you said, with the amount of violence that there was, you know, that the lie that Kava made up that caused the riots in, you know, around the hospital. And it's like, okay, we know people died, but they weren't anybody we know about. They weren't any named characters. And then there's the parade where Nizreen is the only one who dies. And then there's the attack on the Citadel and the palace, where everybody who actually dies other than Ghassan it's unnamed royal guardsmen, unnamed, you know, people in the palace, unnamed, you know, people in the library. It's I don't know. I actually think that's something I hadn't really like focused on. And now I'm kind of like, oh, really? Like, all of this violence, all of this death, and the only person we lose who we care about is Nizreen.
Yeah,
Huh.
it's a little weird.
And I guess one of the, kind of end things I wanted to, or quotes that I wanted to kind of talk about, and this goes back to the violence and everything that we were just going over and over, was I didn't note who said this, but I believe it must have been Ali. I think it could have been someone else, but I'm pretty sure it was Ali. It might have been Nari. I'm tired of everyone in this city feeding on vengeance. I'm tired of teaching our children to hate and fear other children because their parents are our enemies. And I'm sick and tired of acting like the only way to save our people is to cut down all who might oppose us, as if our enemies won't return the favor the instant the power shifts. And that's like, it's almost like too on point.
Yeah, it's almost too obvious.
Like, it's realistic. It's real life. Like, so that's a real life shit. Just laying it down right there. But it's and not just in, this sort of Middle Eastern based world either. Like, yes, this is Middle Eastern based, and I get the parallels to that, but like it's here too.
But also it's America.
Yeah, in different ways, but it's here. And just reading that and just being like facepalm almost, like, because that it's not going to end. You know what I mean? It didn't end in this book, obviously. And this was the middle of a trilogy is always The Empire Strikes Back. Okay. When there's 3 books, the middle of the middle, the second book, the second, installment is always Empire Strikes Back. Maybe not at that level, but close enough. So this is The Empire Strikes Back, right? This is, and in this case, it's like Manitza, she is the Empire, like, and she shouldn't be, right? Like, she shouldn't be worse than Ghassan, but wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, wow, she is. And I just am, I don't know. Okay, so in the end, Ali and there's no magic in Daevabad, and Ali and Nari end up in Egypt. And how the fuck did they end up in Egypt? Like, they dove into the lake.
Yep.
Now I will say, I think it's like very strongly hinted at, because we know that Manitza Dara, the Marid brought them to Daevabad through the water, right? You tell us where you want to go and we take you there. So my theory at the end of this book was that they dove into the lake, and I guess Nari must have been thinking about Egypt. I think it's weird. I feel like the author is trying to keep that a secret from us in a way, but like she explicitly told us that that's how Dara and all of them were getting to Daevabad, right? And we know that Ali is in, whether he means to be or not, is in commune with the Marid, or has that like part of him that is Marid in a way. So, but that's, I guess that's the weird thing, is that what we don't know is, okay, so we know that that Ali has that like sort of commune with the Marid. So was he thinking of Egypt? Because like, that's the only thing that makes sense, really. But that's how I imagine they got there. I mean, I feel like it's weird that it's not explicit, that it's supposed to be some mystery that that's how they ended up there, when it's clearly like, but Ali has this connection to the Marid, and we know the Marid brought Dara and Manitza and their army to Daevabad. So like, obviously that's what happened. It's not a total mystery, but it's just, why Egypt? How did they end up in Egypt? I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it feels like the kind of thing where, like, in the third movie, you pick up right after that happened. Like the second movie ends with them being like, "What? We're in Egypt." Yeah. And then like, cut to black. And then the third movie picks up, and then it's immediately like, oh well, when we were falling, I was thinking of home, and Ali's like, oh, I feel like I picked up on something, and like I was thinking of that too, and then we were magically here. I don't know, but like that's how it felt.
I suppose that Ali could have. I mean, I know that him and Nari, talked about Egypt a lot and stuff, so maybe it had something to do with that. But yeah, it was very like, okay, so they're there. How? Why? Okay, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was Ali thinking about like where would be safe for Nari, and he thought about her home or something. I don't know.
That's true.
I guess
actually.
We'll find
we
out
do know. Let's be real that the two of them are super into each other.
Yes, obviously.
Like have been, even though Ali is like, I am chaste and pure, and
we're just friends.
Yeah, even though she's his brother's wife now, like even before that, he was like, she is my friend. And Nari's like, he is my friend. And it's like,
look, we've all been in that situation.
Oh yeah.
We're like, no, it's fine. It's just, we're just friends. We're just friends.
Yeah. I mean, Dean and I were absolutely just friends. I mean, we truly were. It's not like I was in love with him for like most of that time, but it's fine.
No,
like,
it's fine. We've all been
but yeah, so all right. Any last thoughts before we conclude about this book? I mean, I liked it.
It was a solid like second book in a trilogy.
Yeah. It's like I don't have complaints. I do feel like there was a little bit of, I mean, I don't know, like I said, like I feel like the only killing off Nizreen, and like especially at the end when we have this like huge battle going on and it's just nameless soldiers dying. I know Dara loses some of his soldiers who are important to him, but
we don't really care about them.
I mean, maybe we should, because they are kind of in a way innocent. They're being led to believe one thing, like we said earlier, like they're being manipulated into doing what they do. But yeah, you don't get to know any of them well enough.
Yeah,
right?
They haven't been set up for us to care about them.
Right. Yeah. So I don't have major complaints about this book, although I think it was a little slower for me than the first one.
Also, what happened, like, I'm sure that this got covered and I'm just blanking on it, but what happened to Lubaid and what's her name?
Akiza.
Like, I feel like they just kind of got lost in the story somewhere.
I think at the end they do just kind of get lost. Like we don't know for sure what their fate is. I'm
glad it wasn't just me like completely forgetting that.
No, no. Neither of them were seen dying.
Yeah.
Maybe Lubaid did. No, Lubaid I think did.
Oh.
Lubaid got dragged down by the ghouls.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's what it was. Okay, so I lied. We lost Lubaid too. Lubaid too.
But
R.I.P. Lubaid. I'm so sorry for forgetting about him. Wow, I feel so bad now. We've been like, oh, not enough people died. Still not enough people died, but also Lubaid. Oh, he was so funny.
Well, also, like, I feel like Lubaid was a stronger character in the first chunk of the book, and then we kind of lose track of him.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And then he comes back, and you're right, he does get dragged down by the ghouls. But by that point, it was like, oh, yeah, Lubaid.
Which is kind of what happened with Dara in the first book, honestly. Yeah. So maybe, I mean, to be honest, that might be like, I don't want to say complaint. I don't think that's the right word, but like a
issue.
Just like an issue with the author, that she has this like, I'm going to introduce you to this character, and I'm going to I guess Lubaid was not as big of a character as Dara for sure, but like get, he's clearly important, and he's definitely important to Ali. But then he just disappears for a while, and then he dies.
Yep.
And it's sort of like in the first book where Dara kind of is like this third party character that gets shunted off to the side, and then he comes back and he dies, quote unquote. Yep. But yeah, okay, thank you for bringing that up because wow, now I feel so bad that I forgot that Lubaid died. And I honestly think
Sorry to all the Lubaid stands.
I think I'm more sad about him dying than I am about Nizreen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was a much more like I definitely had a more which I feel bad about now because I've completely forgot about it.
But, yeah. Listen, I read this book
have
2
a
weeks
more.
ago. That's my excuse.
It's a good excuse. It's a better excuse than mine. I blame life and it occupying too much of my brain.
Yes, how dare. So I guess like in conclusion, R.I.P. Lubaid, yeah, because he definitely got dragged down by some ghouls and it was a horrible way to die. And also we forgot about him for a minute. Oh my god, we are Benioff and Weiss right now. We kind of forgot of if Nami was here, Nami would not have forgotten about Lubaid. No,
she would not have. See, this is why we need Nami.
Yeah, I know. Or Jonathan even.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jonathan probably would have been more like with me on the leaning on not enough people died.
Probably, yes. Nami would be the Lubaid stand though.
Yeah. He was really funny. Funny.
I really hope that Nami is like a solid like Lubaid stand.
Yeah, I think we need to like create the idea that Nami is a Lubaid stand and like manifest it into happening.
Yes. I think that now that we have come to this conclusion, it is true.
I'm gonna tag her on Twitter. I'm gonna tag her on Twitter and be like, Nami, from now on you have to be a Lubaid stan.
Perfect. Love you, Nami. You're the best.
All right, so I was trying to I thought it would be a fun thing that I came up with for the last webcast to come up with like a concluding question that's kind of about, the book or the series that we've read. This one is not as good as the one I had for City of Brass because I just have had a week. But if you lived in Daevabad, like what life would you like to live? What position would you like to hold? Like, would you want to be a ruler or a noble or like a Nahid, like a healer, part of the royal guard, a temple priest, or just kind of like a normal person living your life as like a person in the market or something?
So I'm going to cheat. I would totally want to be a Nahid ruler because then I could be both a healer and a ruler.
I mean, that counts.
I feel like that's legit because the Nahid Council exists. I think that's a totally legit answer. But of the power set, I would definitely want to be a healer. And then obviously I would want to be a ruler because somebody has got to fix all this mess that Ghassan and Manaiza created.
Yeah, I'm in this weird zone where I really... and I hate that I cannot remember her name out the top of my head. The Shafiq doctor, essentially. I want to be a healer, but I don't think I want I don't want to deal with like being like a powerful ruler. So I would like to be like a Shafiq who also has the abilities, whether it's from my own past or like in the case of the Shafiq healer we meet, where she learned it from her father, who is able to help people. Because I don't want the responsibility. Like that, I can't believe I'm saying this. I would rather deal with like the hate that comes from being like a Shafiq than I would to deal with I had too much responsibility in real life. So
yep, that's legit. Her name, by the way, is Subha Sen.
I knew it started with an S.
You were absolutely right.
And she also has this like happy marriage with this like really great guy and a happy little baby. And I don't want the baby, but I want the rest of it. So yeah, I think I'd like the knowledge to heal without having and also some magic. That's great, but that's also not having to deal with the responsibilities of being super powerful. If I wasn't that, I would probably be... I don't know. It's like I would like to be like a warrior, but I also don't want to be like... It's like I put that one to the side because like I wouldn't want to be royal guard or Afshin because I don't want to feel like that idea of just being so committed to your your Nahid or your ruler, that you overlook all the shitty things they do. I couldn't do that.
No,
So
same.
Well, all right. On that note, once again, I'm Tara. I'm here with Nick. Thank you for joining us for Sagas and Sass as we cover Kingdom of Copper. We will see you in 2 weeks, which is, I can't think, Wednesday, October 20th, when we will be covering Empire of Gold, which is the third and final book in the Daevabad trilogy. I'm very excited. Like I said, already read this, so
can't wait.
There's going to be so much to talk about. All right. Have a good night, y'all. Bye.
Bye.